let's look at two ways that we can help reduce the chance that we'll make a mistake and not catch it. And when I say make a mistake, I mean we'll have Code Interpreter or the GPT-4 model hallucinate something that we then accept as correct. This is really important when we're working with documents. We want to try to do whatever we can to make sure that we don't get something that we didn't intend, some hallucination into the output. Now, what is a hallucination? Well, that's basically any time that it goes and dreams up something that wasn't really in our original text. And we're really going to focus on, we want the output to be consistent with the documents that we give it. We want the facts to be derived from the documents in most cases. Now, there's some cases where we want it to try to pull from its training data and do other things, but we're going to look specifically at the case where we're trying to build an analysis based on the documents that we've given it. And the documents that we've given it may not align with what it was trained on. Now, this is a sort of an important but subtle distinction, is we're looking at the source of truth in this case as the documents. And if that's not what we're going for, these techniques may not be the best approach. But in the case where we really want the analysis to be based on what's in the documents, these are some techniques that can help us. So here's an example. I've taken the IRS Form 1040. It's a U.S. tax document. And I say, please read the provided document so that you can answer questions about it. And so the ChatGPT goes through, or Code Interpreter goes through and provides some information about it. And then I go and I say, list all of the prompts for information in the form and the identifier. Now, what's really important about this is I'm going and I'm telling it to list the identifier for these pieces of information that are being asked for. Now, why am I doing this? Is because when it gives us an identifier is something that we can then go and cross-reference with the original document. What we want to try to do is we want to build ways that we can do consistency checks between what is being produced and the original set of documents. And an identifier is one really useful way of doing a consistency check, because we can take the output, we can look at the identifier that it provides. It tells us this question, and it gives us the identifier, asks for this information. Well, we can always go back and check if that's consistent with what's in the document. Is the question that identifier is referring to the same question that Code Interpreter is saying? And in this case, for example, we can go and we can look at all the different identifiers like 1A, 1B, 1C, and we could go back and compare those to the original form and see if those questions really do exist and if they really do have those identifiers. So anytime we want to go through and provide some type of consistency, we want to have identifiers or ways of pointing to specific parts of the original documents. Now, this could be page numbers and line numbers. It could be section numbers. There's all kinds of ways that you could do this. Now, whatever approach you take, you're going to have to make sure when you provide the documents to Code Interpreter that all of those pieces of text are clearly identifiable, so that it can talk about this section and this number, or this page and this paragraph. And you're going to have a way of providing that information to Code Interpreter. Now, when you go and read a document, if it doesn't have it, you might want to have Code Interpreter go and break the text down line by line and then display it to you with line numbers, and then ask it to go and provide an analysis and give you the original line numbers, and then you could try to go back. There's lots of ways of enriching the document with identifiers that you can go back and point to. And that the key is that you want Code Interpreter to provide its analysis, and in its analysis you want it to output identifiers. Now, a second way that we can do this is we can have it go and reference back to the source document. So in this original chat, I was going through and I was basically working through one of my transcripts. Now, my transcript is kind of a big jumble of text. It doesn't really have any key identifiers. It doesn't have section numbers. It's just a raw recording and transcription of what I said in a video. So how do we go and deal with that? Well, if we don't have identifiers, what we can do is we can ask it to go and look at the text and provide appropriate quotations, essentially. Go and pull quotations from the original text and provide them beneath the statements that they support. So in this case, I've asked it to take the outline that it produced, and I've asked it to go through and provide me quotations from my transcript where I say something related to that. And then I can go and look at the quotations that it's pulling and see if they really do support the bullet within the outline or whatever statement is being made. So that's another way that we can do it, is we can ask it to try to go and pull from the source material. Now we may have a little bit harder of a time because now we have to go and search for these different quotations, but this is another way that we can go in through and do this. And we've done this, I've done this several different times. And then you can say, we can also go and then identify places where it can't find a quotation. That's interesting data. And so in this case, I had it go and build out an outline, and it sort of dreamed up some new ideas based on what was in my transcript and what came earlier. But these are really things that it's injecting into the outline that really weren't present in the transcript. And when I tell it to go and pull from the transcript and find supporting quotations, what it says is it can't do it right here. So it says, no specific sentence found in the transcript, but challenges may refer to difficulties in extracting specific details from unstructured data. And we actually see a number of different cases where it says there's no supporting quotations, basically, within the original transcript. Now, if I'm really paying attention and I see that, I can go and say, okay, well, this is a place where I have to decide, is it appropriate to include that or not? Because there was nothing about that in the original transcript. So this is, in some sense, a new idea or hallucination potentially that's being injected. Now, is it a hallucination? I think that's not the case here. I mean, it depends on your definition of hallucination. I'm trying to get it to generate an outline that's consistent with the topics that are being discussed in the transcript. And these aren't topics that are specifically discussed in the transcript, but they're related and relevant and valid ideas. They're not just errors. On the other hand, if my goal is to make it so that I'm only outlining and discussing things that are truly in the transcript, then I could view this as an error and I could go and remove all of these. But the key is that having it go and try to pull quotations or reference specific places in the original document is a way that you can then go and do a consistency check and see what's there, what's not. Now, I also could have done this same type of check with identifiers. I could have said, produce the outline. Now, go and reference identifiers within the original document where there's supporting text or supporting statements or supporting whatever it is, basically supporting evidence for the ideas that it's putting into there. So whenever you need to make sure that the output is consistent with original documents, have it go and reference identifiers in the original document, or have it go and produce essentially quotations that support the different outputs that it's producing so that you can then go and check them.